Long before the world looked the way it does today, long before any of us were alive, our people, the Anishinaabeg, came to this place. We followed our teachings, not fully aware then how profound their impact would come to be. How one plant would come to embody the pride and identity of entire communities. How a simple grain of rice would define the lives of so many people. How Monoman, the good seed, would so thoroughly influence the culture of entire nations.
Our people originated from the east. They were over there living good lives, living happy lives. How they came to this area came about as a necessity. And there was talked about the five lakes that comprised the nation, the place where the people were to settle. This became the place where the new food source was revealed to them. Shigami Kiwan. Chi for big, great, something that's great, that's huge. Talking about the Great Lakes.
And I almost see the Great Lakes as the heart of the continent. It functions in the same place where the heart does in a human body. When Nottawasepi made that journey from the East Coast here to the Great Lakes and saw that flower, then he started seeing everything else around here. That was his first thing that he noticed. So our peoples, the Anishinaabe peoples, have been living with wild rice since Nottawasepi found this homeland for us. As you go into the wild rice beds, that story becomes alive, our migration story. You see it happening right in front of you. You see what Nottawasepi saw, and it all makes sense.
Monoman, we call it. Of course, Monoman is its full name. Wild rice. Wild, good food. Wild, good seed. Mun means seed. Mano is good. So it was a wild, good seed that grew on the face of the waters.
I see Monoman as almost our seminal or our most sacred food. It's why we're here. So following that trail of Nottawasepi was like reintroducing ourselves and our people back to the wild rice lakes and seeing what Nottawasepi first saw, and then seeing all the other things that come with that. But it's important, I believe, for our children to see the flower, to understand that story, to understand the beauty of it, and that we need to take that responsibility and understand those stories and everything that comes with them.
Wild river rice, Zizania aquatica variety aquatica, is a listed as threatened species by the state of Michigan. In southwest Michigan, it is the dominant rice plant along small and medium-sized rivers. As spring breaks, wild river rice responds to warming water temperatures, day length, and it starts to sprout. Its first 6 weeks or so stays in what is called the aquatic form. As the plant slowly grows, reaches the water surface, and spends a short period of time in the floating leaf stage, where the rice plant slowly elongates but stays floating on the water's surface. Around midsummer, the rice plant begins to stand up or emerge as that stalk stiffens and starts to elongate. That is when wild rice really becomes prominent on the margins of the smaller creeks in Calhoun County.
The Monoman plants, the wild rice has two different flowers on there. They have a male and a female flower. As the male flower opens up and it releases its pollen, flows throughout the wild rice bed. Heavy rain at the wrong time when the male flowers open up, or too high of a temperature, or big winds that don't allow the pollen to float within the air space. Those are things that I'm concerned about. The female flower is at the top of the plant or the pinnacle, and it looks like a little white eagle fluff. And when that catches pollen, it starts developing a wild rice seed inside of a little casing. And that becomes the seed that we like to eat and that birds like to eat also.
Rice seeds fall into the water column, and with the long tail that a rice seed has, it directs itself into the bottom of the river, holding it there for the next growing season.
As each tiny pod of life falls slowly towards the river bottom, there is a growing understanding that the way it has always been is the way it needs to be.
Orzeszko, that's what we call the muskrat.
They use the wild rice stalks to help build their muskrat lodges. In the middle of a wild rice bed, it's a very productive region. Many different kind of birds find either the wild rice or the bugs that are in the wild rice as something that they want.
Shorebirds that live in the marshes are especially fond of the rice seeds that have fallen to the base of the larger rice beds. Canada geese, wood ducks, mallards, and the migrating waterfowl all find the rice seeds an invaluable food source. Wild rice also host a wide variety of insect life. The stalks of wild rice are strong enough to host dragonflies. There are also a wide variety of moths. So you have inchworms, larval form of moths and other insects. And bees harvest the pollen that comes with the flowering of the wild rice plant in the middle of August. Numerous spiders spin their webs on the expanding rice plants, especially in the flowers and the seed heads, capturing a wide variety of smaller insects to promote their life cycle.
And the spiders don't eat us, they don't bite us. A long time ago, the spiders helped our people. They showed us how to make nets to catch fish. And so in return for the spiders sharing the net with us and how to catch fish and provide for our families, we agreed not to kill the spider. And there was a deal made. The spider said that he would also take care of the bugs that were bothering us in our yards and our homes and in our places where we gather. And so there's a relationship between the spider and our peoples.
Another key aspect of the web of life that is hosted by the wild rice beds along Nottawa Creek.
We get to see all those things out there, and it brings another dimension to my understanding and our understanding of the world and all the good things that can happen in the Monoman bed.
The Nottawasepi Huron Band of Potawatomi's stewardship of the wild rice here on Nottawa Creek has been monitored by the NHBP Environmental Department since 2010. The technology used to do that monitoring has evolved from a clipboard in a canoe to fixed-wing aircraft and high spectral analysis imagery and drone technology with high-resolution cameras that allow for a closer inspection of wild rice from above. Documentation has been extremely strong using global positioning system technology. The dimensions and locations of not only wild rice beds, but individual stands of wild rice have been closely monitored. The maps that have been generated from these efforts allow the Nottawasepi Band to fulfill its stewardship in being sure that there is wild rice available to return this valuable resource to the reservation. Wild rice in some locations might not be appreciated by all that have it close to them. We have used rice in certain locations as the transplant stock to return rice plants back to the res. A win-win situation for all parties, especially the rice that might not have survived the season if it hadn't been moved. The environmental department at NHBP utilizes tribal members, and it's a great opportunity to introduce the tribal youth to natural history management, cooperation with adjacent landowners, and the biology that is important to the preservation of a culturally significant plant such as wild rice.
The bundling serves a couple of purposes. That's kind of like introducing myself to the rice bed. The rice bed knows that I'm there. And when I put that bundle in, it's a very sacred process because I'm taking responsibility. Bundling is a way that identifies a space that we're using. When the bundle is put there, just to let other people know that this field is being taken care of, somebody's accepted responsibilities for it, and they are ricing it. When the wild rice is maturing upside down, red-winged blackbirds cannot eat the seed. And there are some places where redwings get a lot of wild rice. The bundles also have another significance, and that is it makes the rice that you've bundled less subject to being blown by the wind or by heavy rainstorms. And with climate change, that's becoming important because we're experiencing more unusual wind events and more unusual rain events. If you make your own ricing sticks, they work really good. They work better than somebody else's ricing sticks. So I encourage people to make a pair of ricing sticks. All of our children are taught first day, you don't use these to poke each other with or hit each other with or play lightsaber games or all those kind of things with. And the kids get that. There's a respect that goes in there. And when they put their time into it, they're less likely to do these things. The cedar shavings we use to help with fires, place them sometimes in feather boxes. You can use them for potpourri. You can use those shavings to make a dog bed. You can use them for a variety of different things. Nottawasepi Huron Potawatomi, we use the approximately 2.5 to 3 feet ricing stick, Bawa Iganatig, but also another longer ricing stick with a curve on it to reach up and pull the rice over our G-mon and to knock it off. And it's a lot different technique than ricing in the lake rice or the northern wild rice, as it's also called. And my job is to put my knocker, my rice harvester, in a position to keep ricing and keep them into a rhythm.
Monoman is a sacred food. We prayed for that. We offered tobacco. We offered water for that. We did our prayers so that the very end of our sacred migration journey to the place where food grew on water, we honored what was brought here, what was always here, that sacred Monoman, the sacred songs, the sacred ways of our people. And we are where we were meant to be.
And I like to come off the lake half hour to 45 minutes, maybe an hour before dark. Well, after you bring the rice into the canoe, your jiman, the first thing that's always heard is clean your rice. You're always picking sticks, leaves, and bugs out of it, even as it's coming into our canoe. Right off the lake, I put it on a tarp because a lot of those rice bugs and rice worms will leave at that point. They get off of the tarp. And then we parch it or scorch it, which is putting it into a cast iron pan, or copper pan, or a galvanized wash tub. So the purpose of parching it is to prepare the rice for long-term storage in the wintertime. You can store it for a year or two. That's the beauty of Monoman. It can sustain a people or a community for a long time. Parching also makes that husks that's really tight to the wild rice seed, it makes it brittle. When parching the wild rice, it's just like popping corn. Rice and popcorn are directly related to each other. They're both grasses. Dancing on the wild rice is also called jigging or hulling. We dig a shallow hole about maybe 6 to 8 inches deep, 16 inches around, and we line it with a leather hide. And we put the parched wild rice into that pit. So there are a variety of methods that people will use to hold themselves up and to do this. Dancing on the rice, we use leather moccasins that should never touch the ground because they're used for food. And so that leather on leather, kind of a grinding motion, separates the husks from the seeds. Now winnowing is once you've separated the husk from the wild rice, you put it into a birch bark basket, and by tossing it in the air carefully and catching the seeds as they fall back down, the wind will blow out much of the husks that we've loosened from the parched rice away. Good wind outside, you're not in your canoe, you're taking advantage of that day to winnow. After winnowing, where we've separated the majority of the husks away from the seeds itself that we're going to be eating, then the process of hand cleaning or sorting comes out. And usually it's a table or a few tables with lots of different containers with wild rice, and people are separating the good seeds or seeds that need to be maybe danced on or jigged or hulled again. It can be seen as just a mechanical part of the process, but I found that that table is a very rich place. It's a place where a lot of the grandmoms are sitting sometimes and where stories are being told.
who they are, where they come from, and why we do things the way that we do. And it's all in our creation story. Everything is there.
The whole earth was covered with water, and all the animals were swimming, and they were getting tired.
And so they came to him. I need a little piece of earth, he said. If one of you go down and get a piece of earth for me.
And so they decided that they would take turns, all the different clan relations. They all took turns going under the water to see if they could reach any land under the water. And each of them had failed.
And then this little muskrat, they say that he was a very humble guy. He was the most humble of his species. And he did not say much of anything. So that's the kind of guy he was. And he said, I'll try. So he went down. He was gone for a long, long time. Finally, he came drifting up to the top. And in his little hand, he had a little piece of dirt.
And so they knew that the muskrat had found the earth, and so with renewed energy and confidence, each of the clans then dove to the bottom of the lake.
And some stories you'll hear that he placed that on the back of a turtle. And that's why this place is called Turtle Island.
Well, the story doesn't stop there, because that is only the beginning of creation.
So what I like about going to the Monoman beds, there are days often when I see a turtle and I see a muskrat and I see our creation story right there. To the Nottawasepi, some seeds are different than all the others. Yet, it is a paradox that we inevitably find ourselves grappling with every season. We have to forever remind ourselves that our ultimate success is not necessarily defined by the volume of Monoman we harvest. But rather, if Monoman will survive years from now, when the challenges of climate change multiply and the threat of extinction increases. This work speaks to our most cherished asset, thousands of years of traditional ecological knowledge. Like so few other things, Monoman gives us a reason to look forward with hope and determination. This work is about more than ourselves. Our purpose is not just about the Monoman. Our story is considerably more nuanced. Monoman is everything that defines us as a people. Jimnado, Visnara Monoman, Visnara Monoman, Visnara Monoman, Jimnado, Visnara Monoman, Visnara Monoman, Jimnado, Visnara Monoman, Visnara Monoman, Jimnado, Visnara Monoman, Visnara Monoman. Where'd they come from? Oh, Team West. Let's go eat some Monoman.